So you're going to want a flathead screwdriver and a Phillips head screwdriver to do this breaker panel. I've loosened the set screw on the ground bus with my flathead screwdriver. So I'm going to hold the wire using either my wire strippers or a pair of needle nose pliers, and I'm going to feed that in underneath that screw. I want to make sure that I don't have a lowering tail sticking out of the end of that screw, and then I'm going to tighten that down. Now most manufacturers, the paperwork that comes with the breaker panel identifies the amount of torque or force in a circle that you need to apply to these screws on the ground bus, the neutral bus, and even on the circuit breaker itself. Typically it's 20 foot-pound or 20 inch-pounds on the screw. Translation, make it as tight as you can get it. So I've got that screw in there. I've checked my tail's not sticking out too far, and then I'm going to tighten that down as tight as I can get that without tearing anything up. Now, take another look. I'm nice and neat and tidy along there. My ground wire's completed. Now let's take the neutral wire, and we're going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to take it over to the edge of the panel. I'm going to neatly bend it at 90 degrees. Because my breaker's in the third setup, I'm going to set my neutral wire up to put it underneath the third bus screw. Pull my wire through that bridle. Now, all that tail can come off. Okay? I've got my wire through the bridle. I've got my wire trimmed to the right length. I'm going to bend it 90 degrees. Now I clip that off, and now I've got to strip that down because I can't just put that plastic coated neutral wire under the neutral bus. I'm going to strip that down, take my flathead screwdriver, loosen up the correct screw on the neutral bus, and I'm going to put that underneath, set that underneath the set screw on the bus. I'm going to confirm that I've got a good connection. Tighten that screw back down tight. And again, I've never seen an electrician use a torque meter on a wire. But I can tell you this, electricians always run a neat panel. Alright, last thing we're going to do is we're going to take the hot wire, we're going to bend that at 90 degrees, and then we're going to come back down and bend it again. I'm going to line up with that breaker panel. I'm going to cut all this extra wire off so I'm nice and tidy. I got to trim about 5/8 of an inch off of the end of that wire. I'm going to straighten up my 90s here so that that wire is nice and neat. Take my flathead or Phillips wire. That's going to loosen up this screw. And I'm going to take this off so you can see real close. I'm loosening this screw right here so that the wire can sit underneath down inside that hole. I'm going to loosen that screw up so the wire can sit in there. And as you can see, when I tighten that up, the set screw squeezes down on that hole right in there. Some guys like to put a little loop in their wire on the end, not a fish hook, but bend that wire completely over and crush that down to where there's a loop in the wire, and that loop sits underneath the set screw. Okay? So, personal preference. Get that down in there tight. I'm going to get that as tight as I can get it. Now, on the breaker panel itself, when we clip this in, this side is going to clip in first on the outside. Okay? Then you're going to hold that tight against the breaker panel with your thumb, and then the business end is going to connect to the center part of the breaker panel. Let me show you how that works. So I'm going to get the seat where it's supposed to be. I'm going to hold that down with my left thumb nice and tight, and then the business end is going to lock into position. Okay? If you are adding this to your home, a new breaker in your home, you want to make sure that that switch is in the off position before you lock it down. Of course, we've already confirmed that the power is turned off in an add-on to our home. So we've got the ground wire to the ground bus, the neutral wire to the neutral bus, and the hot wire coming down and tying into the back side of the breaker panel. Everything's nice and neat and tidy. And at the end, if you had a full breaker panel, oftentimes what an electrician will do is they'll take their leftover sheathing and they'll tie all that up in that corner. And they'll take a short drywall screw, they'll put all this up and treat it almost like a twisty and tie that up in that corner to hold everything nice and tidy. The trick is to leave it nice and clean, organized. First breaker gets the first screws on the bus bar, second breaker, and so on. Quickly, I want to talk about the duplex breaker that we're going to use for our main cutoff and for the dryer. The 10-3 wire that we used for the dryer plug has got a red wire, a black wire, a white wire, and a ground. The red and the black wire, those are the hot wires. They're going to tie into the two screws on the back of the 30 amp duplex breaker. So you're going to strip this wire down just like we talked about on this wire. The red and the black wire are going to tie into the back of this breaker, the ground wire to the ground bus, the neutral wire to the neutral bus. It's just that simple. It's more about being organized and tidy than anything else. And that's how you install the circuit breaker.